Ra says, there is unity. This unity is all that there is. That's why it's called unity. This unity has a potential and a kinetic. This is the implicit polarity of unity. The potential is intelligent infinity. Tapping this potential will yield work. This work has been called by us intelligent energy. So, unity is infinity. Infinity is unity. It can be understood as potential and kinetic. This unity is not just the unity of the octave, but the unity of the octave and the source of the octave, okay? The galaxies show us a third-dimensional view of octaves. When we look at the galaxies, this is a third-dimension physical visual perception of beyond the solar system. That is a view of the third density sphere related to our solar system, related to our body-mind-spirit complex activation. In the suns and the solar systems closer to the center of the galaxy, we see multiple octaves in play. There are in play. We don't see them, but they are in play. All the galaxies and all the octaves that are being experienced in all the galaxies are of the nature of kinetic, or the manifestation of the potential of intelligent infinity, and that's called intelligent energy. There's the creation and the source of creation. The source of creation is the potential. The manifestation or creation itself is the kinetic, meaning there is source and there's manifestation. The source is intelligent infinity. The manifestation comes out through intelligent energy and the octaves. The tapping of the potential or the movement of intelligent infinity generates intelligent energy, generates the octaves. So the origin of light is the action of free will upon love. Infinite free will upon infinite love of the one infinite source or one infinite creator, that interplay of free will and love generates light. That light is intelligent energy. That is what Ra is calling the kinetic. Ra goes on, the nature of this work, meaning how there's manifestation from intelligent infinity, the potential through into the kinetic intelligent energy, or the octaves. The nature of this work is dependent upon the particular distortion of free will, which in turn is the nature of a particular intelligent energy or kinetic focus of the potential of unity or that which is all. The nature of this work, meaning the manifestation of what comes out of the source of all, or the source of manifestation, the source of all creation, how it is tapped, what happens with the descent from infinity into manifestation, the nature of this work, or the deployment of infinity into finity, the particular manifestations generated by the interplay of free will, and infinite love generating light. The nature of that work is dependent upon the particular distortion of free will, or how, what is chosen, how to manifest an octave, let's say. And also for the server, in the case of how you want to serve based on the situation. For the adept, this is for a crystallized healer, the real adept, who can tap 8th density through to 6th chakra intelligent energy and allow it to come forth as love or wisdom or beingness, silent being, or healing, teaching, and radiation of love light. The particular distortion of free will, meaning based on free will, maybe the free will of a logos or the free will of a server. These are the two cases. The free will of a logos creating an octave, the free will of a server offering a particular form of service, both occur through free will. That free will determines the nature of the work, or what will be done by using the potential, intelligent infinity, manifesting it into some creative form into intelligent energy. And that is, when Ra goes on, so the nature of this work the use of intelligent infinity is dependent upon the particular distortion of free will, or any particular distortion of free will, meaning free will. The choice of a logos, or the choice of a server, let's say, which in turn is the nature of a particular intelligent energy, meaning the form, the modulation, that meaning a particular modulation of intelligent energy, or, which can also be called, a particular intelligent energy, or the nature of any particular modulation of or manifestation of intelligent energy, which is itself a kinetic focus of the potential of unity, which is infinite potential, or that which is all. So we're talking about the application of specificity, how it is that infinity, which is formless, before formless even, before the formless, the source of all, how that comes to be in a kinetic way, being tapped, yielding work, coming out as intelligent energy. How in the world does that happen? Well, in a general sense, it depends on free will, the particular distortion of free will, or how free will is applied, the choice of the one who is tapping into intelligent infinity, which itself, that choice, that free will decision or determination of how to use it, is equivalent to, or its nature is, a particular intelligent energy or kinetic focus. And so it's just the application of free will to determine a particular focus for intelligent energy is the way that infinity is tapped. And that infinity is the potential of unity, or that which is all. That which is all is unity. Unity is infinity, or we already know that. It's the transit from infinity to finity, from infinite potential to finite manifestation, from intelligent infinity to intelligent energy, from beyond the octave into the octave, based on free will. This kinetic focus is involves a particular application of the infinite potential of infinity, which is unity, which is all. And that's what intelligent infinity is. It's basically infinite. It's infinite potential that can be used in an infinity of ways. Anyway, he goes on, 27.6. I'd like to expand a little on the concept of work. In Newtonian physics, concept of work is what we call a force which moves through space. This is it's the product of force and distance as we measure it. So the product of force and distance produces work. I'm assuming that the work of which you speak is a much broader term, including possibly work and consciousness. Am I correct? And that's a very wise insight. Ra really is going to be talking about work and consciousness. Ron explains, 27.6, as we use this term, work, it is universal in application. So work in many types of work. Intelligent infinity has a rhythm or flow as of a giant heart, beginning with the central sun, as you would think or conceive of this, the presence of the flow inevitable as a tide of beingness without polarity, without finity. The vast and silent, all beating outward, focusing outward and inward until the focuses or foci are complete. The intelligence or consciousness of foci have reached a state where their, shall we say, spiritual nature or mass calls them inward, until all is coalesced. Sorry, the drama's added by me. This is the rhythm of reality as you spoke. All right. It's like Shakespearean theater. So, the term work is being used by Ra in a way for universal application, meaning any manifestation into an octave from intelligent infinity through into intelligent energy, any type of working of that transit. But intelligent infinity itself, before kinetic work, the potential, infinite potential, intelligent infinity could be also called potential infinity, potential infinity, or infinite potential. Intelligent infinity has a rhythm or a flow as of a giant heart. Boom, 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 boom. And this is maybe like what Howard Storm saw in his vision of the Logos, creating, light streaming from a central point, or central massive sphere of white light, generating beings and galaxies from that. Intelligent infinity has a rhythm. It has its own flow. It's like a heart pulsing. It begins with a central sun. I think this could also be called a galactic center, but it's the galactic center as a symbol for infinite potential, center, manifestations, source of all manifestation. Beginning with the central sun as you would think or conceive of this, the flow comes from this infinity, potential, intelligent infinity. It's inevitable. And this tide of beingness without polarity is before polarity. So there's no polarity from sixth density up. And there's obviously no polarity before, the octave. Without finity. Finity came later. The vast and silent, all beating outward. The vast and silent. It is vast. It is silent, and that's why sometimes infinity is called the void. It's infinity, it's pretty vast, it's beyond vast. It's silent in the sense that there's no vibration yet, but it's beating. It's the beating of infinity. Outward, focusing outward, and then inward, until the focuses are complete, which is basically formulating the types, the particular forms of intelligent infinity that will come out as galaxies, or forms of service. And so the intelligence or consciousness of foci, which is basically intelligent energy, these are the logoi. Consciousness of foci or focal points of intelligent energy, bearing the power of their source, intelligent infinity. Then they reach a state where their spiritual nature or mass calls them inward. Okay, now Ra's talking about the end of creation. And so, in some ways, this is the Big Bang leading to the big, the phase of pralaya. Hinduism talked about this, that creation is like a heartbeat. Hindu cosmology is very excellent. And so Vedic cosmology has some view of, the phases of creation, which is a pulsing out and then a returning back. And so I think that's what Ra's talking about, is that eventually later their spiritual nature or mass, a sense, leads to a recollection. So there's the expansion and then a contraction, there's the pulsing outward, and then the natural self-magnetic attraction that pulls all creation back to its source. This is the rhythm of reality as you spoke. And the rhythm of creation, infinite creation of infinite time, from intelligent infinity to finity and kinetic and polarity, and then back self-absorbing, self-coalescing back to source back to its the source of all manifestation. So unity is unity. Unity is infinity. The source of all finity or all form is infinity. Absolutely, of course. And unity, or the source, has no potential or kinetic within it itself. That's only apparent as it moves and does work. So anyway, Ra explains, there is no difference, potential or kinetic, in unity. The basic rhythms of intelligent infinity are totally without distortion of any kind. The rhythms are clothed in mystery, for they are being itself. From this undistorted unity, however, appears a potential in relation to intelligent energy. In this way, you may observe the term to be somewhat two-sided, one use of the term, that being as the undistorted unity, being without any kinetic or potential side. The other application of this term, which we use undifferentiatedly for lack of other term, in the sense of the vast potential tapped into by foci or focuses of energy, which we call intelligent energy. So, if you're still okay, you haven't wigged out, that's good. There is infinity before activity, and then there's infinity in activity, or what we would measure activity. The basic rhythms of intelligent infinity are without any distortion. There is no potential or kinetic, there is no difference, potential or kinetic, in unity. So this is like absolute view and relative view in Buddhism. In terms of absolute view, reality as is, no differentiation conceptually can be made. In terms of infinity and reality, as it is actually, before naming activity, we can't apply naming activity. If you want to know what reality is, the source of manifestation, names don't help, and names are wrong, and names are deceptive. So there is no difference, there is no distinction, potential or kinetic, in the infinite source. In infinite source, we can't make a distinction between potential or kinetic. Yet, you see we're using phrases like, I use the term, the basic rhythms. Actually, there is no, you can say there are rhythms, but you also cannot say there are rhythms, because rhythm implies a differentiation between something that's not rhythm. So if you say there's a rhythm, or there's a wave in the ocean, that means there's some kind of ocean without a wave. Or we can perceive the ocean without a wave because we're saying, here I perceive a wave. And that's not the case. There is no differentiation possible. And this is why Gautama said, don't get into cosmology. Gautama, one of the 4 incomprehensibles, matters that you just should not spend a lot of time on. One of the 4 is cosmology, according to Gautama in the Pali writing. And so that's because we get lost in this, really, because words don't cut it. Words will not explain. So we can say there's no difference between a potential or kinetic in intelligent infinity. We can't even apply any designation or conceptual differentiation to infinity, of course. Yet here Ra's using conceptual designation of basic rhythms and saying, oh, intelligent infinity has basic rhythms, but they're without distortion. But actually, the differentiation or the designation or delineation that there are basic rhythms is a distortion. It's a conceptual distortion, or the perception or the conception of there being rhythms, while there's implicitly a recognition that there may not be rhythms. To say it is based on a possibility of it not being, that it isn't. This is, very, very subtle philosophy of language and knowledge, but you really can't talk about infinity. And so he's asking for a talk, and Ra's giving talk, but it doesn't really apply to the reality. The rhythms, that's why Ra said the rhythms are closed in mystery. They are being itself, but that's not the same as sixth density being. It's just that they're using the word being. This is undistorted unity, but in relation to what came later, we can recognize potential. That's the point. In relation to the manifestation or the activity of the Absolute, we can talk about qualities of the Absolute. But without relation to what came later, we can't talk about anything. So the term is somewhat two-sided, the term work. So essentially, in the Absolute there's no work. But in relation to the fact that work seems to have appeared, meaning there are octaves, and there are logoi, then we can talk about work being potential to infinity, in infinity. And so, on the one side, the term, we can talk about undistorted unity being itself without any kinetic or potential side. It just is infinity. And appellation such as kinetic and potential don't fit. Meanwhile, we can say that there are foci or focuses of energy called intelligent energy, which represents some kind of manifestation of infinity, intelligent infinity, by which we can then use the terms potential and kinetic. And Ross said, we're using this undifferentiatedly for lack of other term. The term being actually intelligent infinity or work. You can look at infinity from the perspective of itself, or infinity from the perspective of what it generates, meaning the creation. And infinity in and of itself basically cannot be spoken of, period. Meanwhile, in relation to what seems to come later, or what seems to be created from it, we can talk about potential and kinetic, we can talk about intelligent energy as a manifestation of intelligent infinity, but the logos as a manifestation of intelligent energy, the logos has been equated to the term intelligent energy, is itself infinite too, but it's sort of infinity in motion as opposed to infinity before motion. It's crazy, sorry, but it's very, that's where words fail. Words really fail with this discussion. The metaphysics of creation, the creational process, how we go from the non-created to the created, which is intelligent infinity, and becoming or acting and becoming intelligent energy, the logos, love, light, light, love, that is the light, the metaphysical light that is the result of, Ross said, the action of free will upon love. So you have intelligent infinity, and the first distortion, the law of free will, acting upon infinite love, which is different than fourth chakra love, fourth dimensional. So the creator wishing to know itself, or intelligent infinity wishing to know itself, that wish being a manifestation of free will, acting upon love, and creating light. So the first three laws, the three distortions, the law of free will, the law of love, the law of light. Ross said the origin of light is the action of free will upon love, which is second principle love, not fourth chakra love, infinite love. And so the idea that God is love has some truth to it, and Ra will address that later in the session today. It's actually more appropriate or more accurate to say God is infinity, God is unity, God is unity that is infinity, or unified infinity, or totality, or the boundless, which includes love. But it also includes the option for entities to go negative. That's part of the provision of free will to the manifestation of light, which is, as Ross said, really light love. So that cosmology is the topic or the focus of today's talk and session 27. 27.4, Ra defined the word intelligent in the concept of intelligent infinity, and it was a long roundabout explanation that I gave. And Ra, basically you can't separate these, and because intelligence or boundless mind or limitless mind power potential is intrinsic to infinity. Infinity includes everything, And this is again an understanding of the creational process, which we're calling linear, right? So there's infinity becoming aware of itself, becoming intelligent infinity, discerning the concept of finity, or the potential that there could be an experience of apparently not itself. The infinite figured out the possibility, the concept of finity, limitation, non-infinity, and realized that it could experience itself in the appearance of non-infinity, and then by the interplay of that free will with infinite love, giving birth to light, and that light being the origin of the nature of energy. So Ross said the nature of energy is light, the origin of light is the action of free will upon love. And Dawn is questioning right from the beginning, how is it that infinity, which has become intelligent, gives birth to light? What does this mean, intelligent? And Ra is basically saying you can't split the term, intelligent infinity, because it's, intrinsic to the nature of infinity to have that capacity of infinite intelligence. 27.5, Rod said there is unity. This unity is all that there is, and so all that we see and all that is unseen, 3D space-time we see, 3D time-space, astral planes, heaven worlds, and all the higher dimensions, 4, 5, 6, 7, and all the other octaves we don't see. Unity is all that there is, plus the creational source of all the octaves, which is intelligent infinity. So intelligent infinity, which is a unity, manifests as infinite light, Ein Sof, and that infinite light manifests in the endless octaves of 7 dimensions and then beings and levels. And so Ra explains that this unity has a potential and a kinetic. We can understand it that way. The potential is intelligent infinity, or the void, or the plenum, the boundless, the mysterium, God as limitless and beyond description. But then there's the activation, or the movement of that infinite potential, infinite intelligence, intelligent infinity, and tapping this potential will yield work. The work has been called by us intelligent energy, and in a sense, everything really is one. And so intelligent infinity and intelligent energy are actually also one. But we can say that we use the term intelligent infinity to describe the infinity as potential and a source of light. And intelligent infinity potential tapped or doing work or in kinetic phase or in motion or moving to vibration, we call that intelligent energy. And that is the source, or that is ultimately light, you see. Light, which is light love, is intelligent energy. And that is ultimately the logoi, the logoses, the many stars, or the stars that are the manifestation of the creators of 7-dimensional solar systems, octaves. That logos, like the sun, we can say, as an easy point of reference, the sun as the space-time manifestation of the logoses, those logoi, which is from the Greek meaning word, W-O-R-D, those logoi are themselves the source of intelligent energy, or a down-stepping point between infinite intelligence or intelligent infinity and the octaves. The bridge is intelligent energy, or what comes out of the bridge, whose other side is in 8th density, is beyond the octave. What comes through on our side of the bridge is intelligent energy, which is really no different than the logos, or the logoi, which is light, love, light, and the source of light, the source of vibration. And so 27.6, we're trying to expand on the concept of work, or Dawn is trying to bring this discussion of cosmology into Newtonian physics. I'm not going to get long into that, but the notion of 27.6, intelligent infinity having a rhythm or flow as of a giant heart beginning with the central sun, which could be called galactic center, which is the source of the stars of a galaxy. And you can say that that galactic center is the first logos, but it's not the same as is the one infinite creator. The one infinite creator is the source of the galaxies, the source of the central spiritual suns that gave birth to all the stars of any galaxy. So you need to get clear on the progression, even though it's simultaneous, not linear. In the linear view, there's intelligent infinity, and then discerning the possibility of finity, wishing to know itself, then by that desire, which is the law of free will, interacting with its own infinite love, desire for experience, giving birth to light or the logoi, and ultimately intelligent energy, and the galactic centers, and the stars of each galaxy, which are themselves logoi or sub-logoi actually, which are source of intelligent energy or the bridge of intelligent energy, making or forming each octave associated with the solar systems. Now, if you got all that clear, you have a pretty good basis to understand what Ra's saying. It takes years to know this, or it took me years to figure this out. But the analogy of intelligent infinity as a giant heart is very useful. We'll talk about this later in the session. There's a cardiac rhythm, there's a respiratory rhythm, and then there's tidal or lunar cycles. There are cycles of the tides of the oceans related to the moon and the earth. And like a heart, and like the breath, heart, 4th chakra, breath, 5th chakra, right? There are cycles. For the cardiac cycle, we have systole, diastole, contraction, and dilation. The contraction is systole, the dilation or expansion phase is diastole. In the respiratory cycle, we have inhalation, exhalation, which is directly experienced in Anapanasati or Buddhist breath meditation, mindfulness of breath. These cycles, and like the tides coming in, going out, this cyclicity, which is analogous to a giant heart beginning with the central sun, that cyclicity is an analogy for like the manifestation of intelligent infinity into intelligent energy, or the octaves, and then the return path, the path of return, being the spiritual path or soul progression from the animal and the mineral, or the mineral and the plant and the animal, through the human, through the, extraterrestrial, 4th, 5th, 6th dimensional levels, back to higher self, and then back to the one. That's the path of return. That's soul progression. That is the return phase of the giant heart beating, or you may call it the inhalation or the exhalation phase. You can talk about that cycle in breathing, if the respiratory cycle deeply experienced in meditation, particularly in Anapanasati, breath meditation, Buddhist. One can very deeply, I can, somewhat deeply, understand how the quality of the inhalation depends on the quality of the exhalation. And we're not talking about control of the breath, we're talking about the breath getting to this natural condition where the exhalation is very long and the inhalation is very full. And the inhalation is filling with prana, with breath, which is energy, prana, chi, ki, which is light. Prana is light, or intelligent energy, ultimately. That's the essence of breath that's being taken in for energy, intelligent energy. And enlightenment is called release. Moksha in Hinduism is release or liberation, complete and perfect enlightenment. In a sense, the path of return is the path of release. And it's experienced in the microcosm in Anapanasati, breath meditation, as the body-mind move into such stillness or harmony or balance that the exhale becomes very, very long and silent, no noise, almost no sensation even at the nose in deep meditation exhalation, and then the inhalation is very joyous actually. And I've had times when I felt joy, like pushing the button of joy on each inhalation. Each inhalation naturally catalyzed or triggered joy. It was really quite beautiful, and I thought, my God, if I could stay like this, I'd be a pretty happy, smiley guy. Every inhalation, I felt joy, just inhaling, because the exhalation had been so deep, had been naturally gotten to the point, the respiratory cycle had gotten to the point where the release was so deep or full that the inhalation was very full too. and the in-breathing of breath, which is ultimately intelligent energy or prana, catalyzed or triggered just a natural arising of joy. And that's possibility. But the release, the capacity to really exhale, not forced exhale. I'm talking about the body by itself, exhaling deep so that even lower lung material comes out. Not material, but the vapors from the lower lungs come out. Very, very purifying. That exhalation, that respiratory cycle experienced intimately in Anapanasati, teaches one about the path of return as related to the quality of exhalation, related to the conditions of equilibrium or great acceptance and love and wellness in mind, allowing the respiratory cycle to get to that point where the exhalation is that way. That is very much analogous to the creational cycle of the heartbeat, contraction, expansion, or pumping the blood out and the blood coming back. Very many analogies and very many reflections can come naturally upon that contemplation. This is the rhythm of outward, going outward and coming inward. And this is, the universe is not quite a big bang, but it's more like a giant heart, or the breathing, the breath of the infinite one, the one infinite creator breathing. And we are experiencing, the movement back to the source of breath. 27.7, Dawn is saying, in intelligent infinity, again, before activity, we have work without polarity, or a potential difference doesn't exist. Again, we're talking about potential and kinetic, or the infinite void, plenum, richness of intelligent infinity before motion, leading to motion, which is kinetic or work, and leads to the generation of light, intelligent energy. Ross says there's no difference, potential or kinetic, in unity, so that, the essence of intelligent infinity is non-differentiation. There is no differentiation into those two phases. And this is, so they explain, Ra explains, the basic rhythms of intelligent infinity are totally without distortion of any kind, and no differentiation can be applied. That's freedom from naming activity, Gautama Buddha talked about. Rhythms are clothed in mystery, they are being itself, the essence of being indefinable. Then from this undistorted unity, however, nevertheless, appears a potential in relation to intelligent energy, or a potential in relation to the exploration of finity, the illusion, the concept of light. Ra said, you are all dancing thoughts. And so the octave is the thought, the heart thought of infinity. Creation is the beating heart, or the breathing of the infinite one, expressing itself in the concept of light. So intelligent energy, light love, love light, Ra once referred to as the concept of light. The concept of light is the basis for Ra's statement that you are dancing thoughts, you're not living in a material universe. What appears to be a material universe is really energy, and that energy is ultimately insubstantial, and it's immaterial. What we experience as materiality is simply the result of limited perception. Really, it is a manifestation of thought, the thought of the infinite creator, exploring the concept of infinity through the concept of light, through the distortion of free will, with our experiencing ourselves as apparently separate. Resolving all that back to its source is the path of return, or the spiritual path. That's soul progression. Hope you're having a good time here. So let's move to the new material, and I'll try to go faster. 27.8, Don says, now I understand that the first distortion of intelligent infinity is the distortion of what we call free will. Can you give me a definition of this distortion? What's the definition of the law of free will, or the first distortion? Ra said, in this distortion of the law of one, the first distortion, it's recognized that the creator will know itself. So the purpose of the law of free will is for the infinite creator to know itself, exploring the concept of finity, where, through the manifestations and interplay of the concept of light. Light, love, light, the logoi, the octaves. God goes on, am I correct in assuming that the creator will know the creator, that the creator will know itself the creator, then grants for this knowing the concept of freedom? You see, again, it's, infinity doesn't grant, it just explores or manifests. Anyway, wondering the ways of knowing, is the creator giving itself this experience of the law of free will so that it has total freedom of choice as the ways of knowing how to know itself? Ra said, quite correct. Yes, the purpose of the law of free will is that the creator will know itself through the provision of free choice. And again, the law of free will is also called the law of confusion. Ra is the only source, I think, on Earth, actually, that uses that synonym, or makes the definition of the law of free will equivalent to a law of confusion, whereby souls can move out of confusion from misunderstanding as catalyst, and confusion as catalyst can move to clarity and understanding. Free will is an experience of those who are still confused. The crystallized healer has no will, said Ra, meaning higher self, or a fully developed adept has no experience of personal free will aside from knowing the will of the one, or the will of creation as to what's really best, just like the angelics. The angelics don't have free will. They never had. And because they simply see the plan and what's ideal and what's best and try to make it happen. Like the ideal conditions for a plant and the flowering cycles of plants. So they help the plants. Those are like the fairies. And so plant devas, plant spirits, they see how the plant ought to be and help it along. Likewise, the crystallized healer, the full adept, the higher self, and above don't need personal willing because they see reality beyond distortion. And therefore there's no more application of the law of free will as a law of confusion, making personal choice to get out of confusion, because they're no longer deluded. There's the perception of one rather than only the perception of two. So this is non-dual awareness. And so at the higher levels, there's not even a need for free will because the work has been done. And that freedom from confusion really is established at the level of higher self and then beyond. So 2710, Don says, this then being the first distortion of the law of one, which I'm assuming is the law of intelligent infinity, wrong. Correction, So he's, finding his way. And he says, so all other distortions are the total experience of the creator spring from this. Is it correct? In some cases, it's good not to get too hung up on Don's question and just focus on Ra's answer. There's no distortion, I think, in Ra's answer, but Don, like we, are learning along the way. Ra's answer says, this is both correct and incorrect. Ra says, in your illusion, meaning from our perspective, all experience springs from the law of free will, or the way of confusion. In another sense, which we are learning in late sixth density, the experiences are this distortion. The point is, yes, of course, because Ra is not yet out of the formless realms. Gautama and Nityananda are finished with the formless realms. Buddhism, there are three worlds, three realms: desire, form, formless. The formless, in my understanding, are associated with sixth and seventh density, form with fourth and fifth, desire world, third density. Freedom from attachment to the formless states or worlds or realms or sixth, seventh density. What Ra is learning is that, they say, the experiences, all that we deem or define or consider to be an experience is itself a manifestation of the law of free will. This distortion means the distortion of the law of free will or way of confusion. The point is that our conceptualization, naming activity, is what gives rise to what we call experience, right? The interplay of the matrix and the potentiator leads to, or interplay of matrix and potentiator in the tarot for mind, is worked upon by catalyst, which creates experience, card 4. So matrix 1, potentiator 2, catalyst 3, experience 4. Experience is born of the impact of catalyst upon the interacting of matrix and potentiator. When there's no confusion, there's no experience. Then there's no free will. When Ross said you're dancing thoughts, they're saying that this is all in the mind of the creator, but what we think is real is basically conceptual. The concept of light and the concept of finity. And when Gautama talks about the arhat who's finished with the whole game, finished with the formless realms, that there's no way of defining their experience. It's just no words apply. Naming activity has ceased. There are no categories that can be applied to that one, because it is one. The one who is liberated from the octave is one, and therefore no terms are useful. No naming activity or concepts are applicable, and that's the end of experience and the end of a distinction between catalyst and experience. It's the end of any experience or separation between a matrix and a potentiator. The source and the manifestation are realized as one. And so there's no more cyclicity beyond sixth density. This is what Ra is coming to understand, is the emptiness of naming activity and the emptiness, sunyata, of so-called self-defined experience and experiencing. And so the illusory nature of experience is understood by the emptiness of naming activity. Freedom from naming activity, coming from realizing the emptiness of mind and thought, leads to freedom from all distortion and the completion of soul progression out of the octave. Don says, I'll have to think about that and ask questions on it in the next session. And that's right, because this is so subtle, to cognize the processes of 6th and 7th density and transit to the octave is beyond words, ultimately. So what about the second distortion? Is it the distortion of love? Ross says it's correct. 2712. He's asking, can you define love in this sense as the second distortion? And Ra explains it very well. They say, this, meaning the law of love or the second distortion, this must be defined against the background of intelligent infinity or unity or the one creator, these are synonyms, with the primal distortion of free will, which is the kinetic, making motion leading to light and vibration. The term love then may be seen as a focus, the choice of attack. I wouldn't use that word, but the focus, choice of attack, the type of energy of an extremely, shall we say, high order, which causes intelligent energy to be formed from the potential of intelligent infinity in just such and such a way. This then may be seen to be an object rather than an activity by some of your peoples, and the principle of this extremely strong energy focus being worshipped as the creator, instead of unity or oneness from which all loves emanate, which ought to be, parenthetically, which ought to be worshipped as creator. Creator, you can say God is love. So when Ra says the infinity of love as a focalizing or a shaping force that allows undifferentiated intelligent energy, which is the kinetic or in motion manifestation of intelligent infinity, this intelligent energy is shaped by this infinite love of the creator. This is a forming from the potential of intelligent infinity to the kinetic of intelligent energy, forming in just such and such a way. People on earth may see it as an object or see the infinite love of the Creator as an object to be worshipped, rather than an activity of the Creator which is greater than simply love. Love is an aspect of infinity, but the nature of the Creator is infinity, or unity, from which all loves or love emanates. And so we're talking about source versus manifestation. There's no God but God. The Islamic declaration, there's no God but Allah, means there's no God but God. There's no God but the one God. The only higher dimensional God that matters is the source of light, which is nameless, of course. We say God or Allah or some other name, it doesn't matter. It's the matter that infinity, intelligent infinity, is the source of light. Light manifests as, it's being here called intelligent energy, which is no different than the Logos. And so, better to worship the Creator as unity or infinity than the Creator as love only. Is there a manifestation of love we could call vibration? And that's a great question, because that brings us to a distinction between love as the second principle, the enabling principle, the focalizing of intelligent energy, versus love as fourth chakra, fourth dimensional vibration. Ross said, again, we reach semantic difficulties. The vibration or density of love or understanding, fourth, is not a term used in the same sense as the second distortion, love. So we have the three laws or three distortions: free will, love, light, and then love as applied to the dimension of 4, related to green ray heart chakra. Ross says the distortion love, capital L, being the great activator and primal co-creator with free will of various creations using intelligent infinity. On the other hand, the vibration love, small l, being that density in which those who have learned to do an activity called loving without significant distortion then seek the ways of light or wisdom, right? Fifth density. Thus, in vibratory sense, love comes into light in the sense of the activity of unity in its free will. Hey. Love uses light and has the power to direct light in its distortions. Thus, vibratory complexes recapitulate in reverse the creation in its unity, thus showing the rhythm or flow of the great heartbeat, if you'll use this analogy. And so there's systole, diastole, contraction, dilation of the heart, or the respiratory cycle, exhale, inhale, or the tides of the ocean. We have a distinction clear here between the use of the word love as second principle, second law, second distortion, the law of love, as an enabling or a focalizing for intelligent energy, as intelligent infinity, becomes manifest, versus love as vibration or quality of mind, fourth density, fourth chakra, in which those who know what loving means, which is basically unconditional acceptance, use that as the platform to develop light and wisdom. So you see, by free will, we may choose love to seek light. By free will, the Logos generated light through love. So on the one side, coming into creation, you have intelligent infinity making use of free will and love to create light. On our path of return, we have free will using our mind, using free will to choose love, the moment contains love, to choose acceptance and seeing truth, seeing reality, being honest, virtue, goodness, as a way of ultimately seeking light, fifth density, wisdom, knowing, to move back to a condition beyond duality, the law of one, be freedom from distortion, higher self, and moving from 6th to 7th to 8th density. So that's why it's called a path of return. It's a kind of a return cycle of the creational phases. It's important, therefore, to understand the difference between love as second distortion or second principle and love as fourth density, fourth chakra, on the way back to unity. Ra explains each love, as you term the prime movers, comes from one frequency, if you wish to use this term. This frequency is unity. We would perhaps liken it rather to a strength than a frequency, this strength being infinite, the finite qualities being chosen by the particular nature of this primal movement. So this is another way of talking about the movement from intelligent infinity to intelligent energy. Think of the analogy of the logos, or beyond the octave, 8th density, coming through 7th chakra and coming out as intelligent energy by 6th chakra. The highest level of the personal equipment could be called 6th chakra, not 7, because 7 is constant or infinity itself, or a blend with the next octave, or a fusion opening in the next octave. The key is the development of 6th chakra to access that. And the key to the development of 6th chakra, of course, is the development of the clearance of 2 and 3, or 1, 2, 3, by the use of development of 4 and 5. Of course. So there is no real frequency once intelligent. There's no real frequency to the source of vibration. It's a strength, it's a power, it's the infinite will or power that is free will, the law of free will. The law of free will is will. It's freedom will. It's unshackled, infinite will, which is power, which is strength. And that is prior to the law of love. The law of free will is the first of the three principles. And so, if you're talking about where frequency comes from, it comes from unity. And we don't really have to call it a frequency because it's not differentiated. It's infinite. It's a strength, Ross says, which is infinite will, infinite power, the strength being infinite. And then after that infinity, as that infinity moves into a kinetic motion, or it vibrates, starts to, move to light, then finite qualities are chosen by just how, or just exactly, the particular nature of this primal movement. So the infinite strength, which is infinite will of free will, by the nature of its movement, which is the choices of the logoi in the determination of the laws of the octaves. The laws of physics and metaphysics are chosen by the logos, the logoi of the octaves in a galaxy. They're the ones, the logos is choosing by its own exploration the particular nature of the primal movement or vibration or frequency of light, which is the manifestation of intelligent infinity. And the manifestation here is called intelligent energy. 2716, then this vibration, which we could call pure motion, it's pure love, it's not condensed yet to form any type of density or illusion, right? So we're talking about before the octaves. The love, these three principles exist before the octaves. This love, capital L, then creates by the process of vibration a photon, which is light, which is the basic particle of light. Yes. This photon then, by added vibrations and rotations, further condenses or vibrates into particles of the densities, the various densities that we experience is a correct, process is correct. So this is, a recap of the creational process. So by infinite strength, infinite potential, there is, by desire, the seeking of experience, which is itself conceptual, the concept of affinity, manifesting ultimately the concept of light by way of the interplay of free will and love. And the love, or the logos, the second principle, second law of love, is the logos, which is love light, light love, the source or the nature of intelligent energy, which is intelligent infinity in action, in its kinetic phase. And then the photon of light as the interplay of free will and love, has added vibrations and rotations, and then condenses or manifests, doesn't really condense because it's not physical, but it manifests as the particles or the nature of the seven-dimensional octaves. Okay, 2717, we're almost at the end here. Now this is another halting question. Light, which forms the densities, has what we call color. rainbow colors, 7 densities. This color is divided into 7 categories of color. Can you tell me, is there a reason or an explanation for these categories of color? Can you tell me something about that? Don is probably overwhelmed here, like, my God, Ron knows everything. I can ask any question. The question is, what the hell am I going to ask and how to phrase this? Ron says this will be the last complete question of the session, and explains the nature of the vibratory patterns of your universe. The nature of the vibratory patterns of your universe is dependent upon the configurations placed upon the original material or light by the focus or love using its intelligent energy to create a certain pattern of illusions or densities in order to satisfy its own intelligent estimate of a method of knowing itself. Thus the colors, as you call them, are as straight or narrow or necessary as is possible to express given the will of love. And they're saying there's further information they'll be happy to share, but not now. And this was the last main exchange of session 27. Ra is saying, Don is really asking, how come there are 7 colors? Why those colors? And I don't know if you can really say why does it look that way. It just looks that way to our eyes in terms of the qualities of color of the 7 colors of the rainbow, which are, akin exactly the same as the 7 colors associated with the 7 chakras, 1 to 1. Ra is trying to explain, why it has this spectrum. They say this nature of the vibratory patterns of your universe, which means the nature of the differentiation of unity into 7-fold light in the octave, meaning in creation, depends on the configurations placed upon the original material or light. Again, we're working on the shaping of intelligent energy downstepped from intelligent infinity by the logoi, the sub-logos. They're actually sub-logoi, the creator of solar systems, 7-dimensional solar systems. They place configurations, or they make choice in how to configure the original undifferentiated white light into forms of 7-fold octaves, meaning they may be 7 dimensions in each octave, but the qualities of each of the 7 are different in each octave, but they're always 7, according to this view, I think. But the 7-dimensional vibrations, or 7 density conditions, and 7 chakra conditions too, of life in any one octave is different than any other octave. And that's shaped by the logoi. So these configurations placed upon the original material or light by the focus or love, that's intelligent, that's the logoi, which is love light, the solar creators, we can say. By using its intelligent energy, right? It's using intelligent energy. The logos is intelligent energy and uses intelligent energy. But the logos is basically a focalizing of undifferentiated intelligent energy by free will into a beingness that we call God. It's actually, you see, there is no separative identity than the substance which is doing the identifying. We are infinity, identifying ourselves with vibration, and having experience, which is confusion, which according to the law of free will, we're able to make choices within to move out of confusion, to realize that our identity is the one, and that one is infinite, and therefore no differentiation is needed or possible in the dissolution of separative identity when we realize what we are. And so it's the logos that makes these choices, that configures the particular qualities of the 7 rainbow colors, 7 dimensions in any one octave, again with a relation to the conditions of the chakras of beings in any one octave. Those are different too. And that's in order to satisfy its own intelligent estimate of a method of knowing itself. So it's all about self-knowing, there's only the one self, there's only one of us here, said Neil Donald Walsh, that kind of thing. It's all about, know thyself. And that's why know thyself for us is the essence of the path. If you know thyself, you will return to infinity. Because that's thyself. That's thou's self. And so the Creator wishes to know itself and infinity wants to know itself and explores the concept of finity with the concept of light through the focalizing of love into the 7 dimensions, where beings then, by free will, in confusion, choose first to seek love and honesty, and thereby develop appreciation for light, following the principle of knowing themselves, returning back to the original source of the one that also wished to know itself. So we wish to know ourselves, know thyself, which is completely analogous or derivative from the infinite Creator wishing to know itself too, by manifesting us as evolving units, evolving mind, body, spirit complexes in the octave. And so the colors are straight or as narrow, necessary as possible to express given the will of love. That's the interplay of free will and love. And so colors and the conditions or qualities of energy of 7 dimensions in any one octave are as they are, according to that particular logoi or logoic decision, logos's decision, to configure light into its own octave. And that's it for today. Thank you so much. It's very lovely stuff. This is cosmology. If you get this, this is just a shallow presentation. But if we get this level of presentation, we don't have to worry about it too much more. And we can get into a further understanding of the creation, which is the manifestation of the concept of light, and the ways of self knowing self, or being knowing itself, on the path of return, soul progression, how we can get out of confusion and, more fully manifest what we are.